May we come together in the power and the grace and the wisdom that is needed at this time. May we see ourselves as a council of wise ones gathered together to share our collective wisdom, to lift one another up, and to create a context in which leadership is both shared, honored, furthered, and celebrated. May each of us learn to address ourselves as if we are relevant to the great unfolding, as if who we are truly matters. Dear one, you are essential to what is coming next on our planet. If you look around, it is not hard to tell that we are in peril. There are challenges everywhere, and grace abounds everywhere, as it has always been. We live, as it seems, in an irreconcilable paradox. And one of the things that is needed is the council of leaders. And yet we are so bogged down by what there is to do and how to do it in this age that often we are encumbered in such a way that we are not able to rise to our call over a sustained period of time and be supported to do so. This is a time of gathering, a time of collaboration, as if our life depends on it. I invite you to imagine, close your eyes with me, open the eyes of the imagination. Imagine that we are gathering at the council. This council is taking place outside in a grove of trees. All of us together, all of us who want to create a future that is sustainable for humans and plants and animals, the elements, and the very earth itself, into many generations. Imagine that those who are gathered are those who believe and have studied and practiced enough that they believe they have a body of work. This body of work is not defined by how much they've accomplished in the eye of the world, how many followers they have, or what their platform is, or what their bank account reflects, or what their numbers are. It isn't about renown. It isn't about who knows their name. It isn't about all the books they've written. Those who are gathered here at this council of wise ones because they recognize one thing, that they have spent their life shaping who they are and want to bring it out to the community. This is a unique kind of soul, and maybe this is you. And even if it isn't, I invite you to imagine that you are at this council because it's your turn to speak about your work, what you are here to cause and to create. Before you speak, there are many other speakers, so you have time to gather yourself. And first, a leader comes forward to speak to us about the nature of a body of work. And today, that's me. Let's open our eyes. I'm Shiloh Sophia, and for 25 years, I've been working on my own body of work, which I call intentional creativity. This body of work is housed within a concept called Musea, which is multiple muses and multiple museums. And it holds a context for self-expression, for revolution, for transformation, and that each person is a living body of art and of work. We are a kind of living museum with a global presence. People around the world dedicated to the same thing that I am in their own way, with their own content. Self-expression as a basic human right. I've just returned from almost 2 weeks in New York. at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. And every time I go and I present on my work, something comes through to me, comes through my soul that wants to be expressed. That usually happens in painting, writing, and workshops. And today, this is the idea I want to bring to you. And the idea is connected with the wild and sacred nature of a body of work. And I'm actually going to read it to you because I was so delighted that I was able to get anything written down at all. I doubt I could say it again. And so for the sake of this exercise of listening and participating with me, the idea is that you are at this council, and I am one of the leaders who's developing a context for you about beginning to think of yourself and what you've created as a body of work. And so here it is. Welcome to this dialogue. The sacred and wild nature of a body of work. A body of work isn't just something you create in advance. You can't just think it all out and drop it into a spreadsheet. A body of work is not just a container you later fill with stuff that seems appropriate to the name you have given it. A body of work is lived out over time, over a lifetime. You can only do so much in advance because it has to be lived. The mind wants us to be an expert, while the body of work only requires a willingness to show up. One way to think of a body of work is a larger container designed to hold many other containers which fit into and are coherent with the energy, function, and purpose of the primary container. For example, my work is called Intentional Creativity. That is the primary container. And inside of that, there are books and workshops and gatherings and products and paintings that all fit within the container of the body of work. For the visualization of the bowl, I like to think of a crescent moon with circles inside of it. It's a shape holding other shapes. The containers are created as you go along almost automatically and sometimes intentionally. They get shaped in experiential happenings. They hold content once it is made so you can catalog it, name it, and find it again and see how it fits with other features of your work. And by the way, there are paradoxes everywhere because trying to capture content may as well be like trying to make a cloud come to dinner in an evening gown. Yet still, the intrigue makes us try. Some containers are forged from the salt of tears, others from the soil underneath the hen house, rich with compost. Some are made from cracks in the city sidewalks, where weeds become yellow flowers in the spring, reminding us who is really boss. Some containers are honed from wood you thought was only good for firewood. You just never know. Your container muse is so crafty she or he can work with just about anything if you give them the chance and some good tools. Containers may also name themselves afterward. You might find yourself exclaiming, "Oh, I get it now. This is what that was all about." After coming through a harrowing chasm of initiation you weren't sure you would survive. Sometimes we don't know if we're going to make it through. You were being forged, and your very hands were making the shape of chalices that would later reveal their names to you. Soon you will begin to recognize them as they are forming, before they've even cooled. But if you look too soon, they may change before your eyes. They have a mind of their own, containers do. You are your living body of work. You are your living body of work. A body of work comes when you have lived your work in your word long enough that you can see the patterns and codes and correlatives and begin to seek coherency, connecting the dots between events and discovering what you did not see during the experience. A body of work will reveal itself to you when you are wise enough to begin a series of inquiries that will last the rest of your life. Inquiries that delight and entertain you and that speak to the heart of what you feel you are here to cause and to create. When you share and teach your body of work, it creates itself before your eyes and ours. You may be tempted to think that you need to know everything about everything in order to share it, but you don't. So don't fall for the expert illusion idea that is so popular these days. People in the earth don't need experts. We need lovers and poets and gardeners. As we progress in the sharing of the work in whatever way we choose to create from it, we continue to live the work out. It hasn't revealed all of itself to us yet. Most of a body of work will take place in the mystery. We are pretty lucky if we get a hold of it enough to give it language and form. We may have to wrestle stardust to find out what we are doing. And of course, that is almost impossible. Most of us aren't trained to think about creating a body of work. Here's why. We don't see the patterns. We don't take the time to discover them. But mostly, no one told us the patterns existed, and we don't have much language for it. Most things called a body of work are only recognized at the ends of someone's life or later. We are changing that here and now with a new kind of living body of work, choosing to be the work as it happens in real time. This sacred work requires a certain kind of holy focus, and at times a little hocus pocus too, and a lot of time at the drawing board of intentional creativity. I feel that if more of us thought of ourselves as important, or perhaps that one day we might create something worth saving or sharing, or found ourselves relevant enough, we would begin to approach how we live our lives from a larger framework. We could see the connection sooner because we're looking, and in that looking develop a kind of seeing. The person who thinks they may just have something to share shapes their consciousness and begins to look for that which wants to enter the containers that have been set for it. The empty vessels with question marks, anticipating delicious content, will be our constant companions now. You don't need to be an expert to claim having a body of work, because it isn't about all that you have already done. What you have already done has gotten you to this point, and along the way you might not have been conscious of the connectivity. So just at the point when the body of work is ready to show itself to you, that is the teetering threshold when you think you have nothing to say or show. Your body of work has been absorbed into your being. In 1 second you see and the next you don't. It's like a wild thing, and your most basic instincts will be required to sniff out the trail, usually through acts of creativity. A body of work is sometimes a business, but certainly not always. A series of ideas, or one big idea, shared or not. A group of paintings, a collection of songs, a shelf of medicines one has collected their whole lives and knows the name and how to share them when others have need. A philosophy that threads, the connective tissue of a teaching, a way of gathering community, an inquiry into the mythos of the universe. It may be quite personal, or it may request billboards and a budget. You just never know. For something so heavy with the concept of containers, it cannot be contained. Most of the containers don't have lids, by the way. They like information to freely come and go for cycles of time until they are ready enough. A body of work is a grand, etheric, elusive, impossible possibility. I am fairly certain that if each of us treated ourselves with the kind of respect we deserve, there would be more coherent solutions in medicine, civil society, food, housing, education, and government. We aren't seeing the connections like we need to. We are missing that the whole earth has a body of work to sustain us, and in that we must trust and turn in cycles of reciprocity. Yes, your body of work will require your reciprocity. It will not just fill and fill. It will require your time and patience and intentional creativity. You cannot go too fast or rush it. If you try to commodify it too soon, it may flee. If you monetize it out of integrity with yourself, it may not function all the way you thought it might. Let me read that sentence again. If you monetize it in a way that is out of integrity with itself, it may not function at all the way you thought it might. So you see, A body of work is a riddle of grand proportion. There are heroines and villains like any other good story. You can direct the course, but you cannot control it. Better yet, give yourself in service to it and see what happens. The divine ones will work with you when you give up needing to know how this will go and give up everything for love. Play the fool even. Read poetry to the moon. Ask your longtime partner to be your lover again. Have tea with your muse. The sacred and wild nature of your body of work will challenge you and give you the energy you did not have all at the same time. Aha! Respect this. It is almost a rites of passage that you initiate yourself through. Or perhaps you were invited into. No one quite knows. I don't. I do know this. Something immense will be given, and also something immense may dissolve to make room. Not like a give and take, this or that, punishment or reward. Rather like a letting go of anything that isn't needed in order to craft the next empty, anticipatory vessel. Yet again, it is already crafting itself as I share these words with you. Some vessels will ask to be filled. Others will prefer remaining empty for some future day, but letting you know they are here is part of what sparks your mind into the position of knowing. That information, your content, is arriving daily at your doorstep. Will you answer? That is a kind of knocking. A quickening maybe happen as you listen. Do you feel it? Does this conversation even exist? Is this a container? Am I a container speaking to your containers? Waking your slumbering vessels into action? Who knows? I don't. If a body of work has come knocking on your door, or you've been knocking at the temple of its awakening, do not look away. Do not try to run. Light a candle in the early morning, say thank you to the whole universe, and then poise your pen, your brush, or your body in a position to receive. Let it come into you. Let it flow through you. Do not let your body trap it. Content freely flows in and out of containers. You are the vessel of awareness that your great work is seeking. You are the conduit the energy is searching for, an opening in which to pour ecstasy. Will you make yourself supple to this? Will you? When your content becomes a something, like a curriculum, or a book, or a course, or a dress for dancing, or a magic talisman for rubbing, or a bowl for pouring medicine from, then that container finds stability and form and a capacity to be passed from hand to hand, heart to heart. Not all bodies of work will have these forms, but most things one would think of as a body of work do create some kind of form that can be shared or given and later taught for future generations, if it has that kind of nature. My sharing this is from my own container of my body of work. And if you were to look at this container, it would be labeled for my community. It would be a call to action for each of us to see ourselves as truly integral and essential in the great unfolding. It's an invitation to stop waiting to be more prepared and to begin to think differently about what you've already done and the shape it wants to make into your future. This doesn't mean everything is going to go well or right for us. There are no promises like that at this time. What I know is that when you begin to think about yourself as if you have created something and will create something in the future, your body, your heart, your brain, and your field starts to do something different. And that's why I'm talking about this. Most people to this point who've created a body of work, it happened almost without them knowing. They were fixated, stuck on an inquiry, focused on something they wanted to bring out to light. They just got on it and did it and tried it in every possible way. And all of their efforts, whether they achieved results in the end or not, are a part of the body of work which led them to that moment. They don't necessarily know it's happening while it's happening. Then we look back and we say, look what they did. They were prolific. They had this series of paintings, this series of talks, this series of songs. Body of work is an epic idea. And it's an idea that asks us to assume a kind of consciousness in which you consider that you might have one. Not all of us will rise to this occasion, but today I'm here to invite you to inquire into your containers, to rattle the proprietariness of your own information and to ask, do you have a body of work? What is it? Do you have language, shape, image, sound, or light for it? And what would it look like to begin to treat yourself as all that, so that you too may be brave enough when it is your turn to speak at the council?